Fuck off. Fuck off. Fuck off. Fuck off. Fuck off. Fuck off. Some say he was mentally challenged, sitting on the ground with a stick in his hand, drawing shapes in the dust. Curious and touched by his state, she asked him kindly, "What are you doing here?" The man replied softly, "I am drawing paradise and dividing it into parts." The woman smiled gently and said, "Can I take a piece of it? And how much would it cost?" The man looked at her and answered, "Yes, a piece costs 20 pounds or dirhams." She handed him the money along with some food, then walked away. That night she dreamt she was in paradise. The next morning, she told her husband about her encounter with the poor man. Curious, the husband went to see the man himself and said, "I want to buy a piece of paradise too. How much is it?" The poor man replied firmly, "I am not selling." The husband was surprised and said, "But yesterday you sold a piece to my wife for 20 pounds. The poor man answered with wisdom, "Your wife did not buy paradise with 20 pounds. She was simply mending my heart. But you only want paradise itself." Then he added, "And know this, paradise has no fixed price, for its gate is through mending broken hearts. Whoever mends hearts, God will protect them from harm and grant them his paradise." Can you making them moving? A loaf that opened the gate of paradise on a chilly evening. The streets were nearly empty, except for a frail boy who stood silently in front of a bakery. His eyes clung to the loaves of bread behind the glass, not with desire alone, but with the ache of hunger. An elderly woman wrapped in her shawl noticed him. She slowed her steps, then paused, reading the sorrow written on his face. Gently she asked, "Are you hungry, son?" The boy lowered his gaze and murmured, "Yes, but I have nothing to offer in return." The woman's heart softened. Without another word, she entered the bakery, purchased 2 warm loaves, and placed them in his trembling hands. With a faint smile, she said, "Take these. I ask for nothing but your prayer." The boy clutched the bread to his chest as though it were treasure and whispered, his eyes glistening, "May God grant you a place in paradise." That night, the woman dreamt of a vast and radiant garden. Its gate bore an inscription, glowing with light, opened by a loaf of bread, given with a heart that mended another. At dawn, she shared her vision with her son. He listened, then said softly, "Mother, deeds are measured not by their size, but by the mercy they carry. Paradise is not bought with gold, but with a heart that heals and lifts the broken. A loaf that opened the gate of paradise on the broken shoe in a bustling city street, where people hurried past without noticing one another. A young boy sat on the curb, holding a shoe that was torn beyond repair. His clothes were worn, and his eyes carried both innocence and despair. Most passers-by glanced at him briefly and continued their way, each burdened with their own concerns. But a schoolteacher on her way home paused. She looked at the boy, then at the shoe he held so tightly, as though it were his last possession. She approached him and asked softly, "Why do you sit here, little one?" He raised his head slowly and answered, "My shoe is broken, and tomorrow I cannot go to school barefoot. My father cannot buy me another one." The teacher's heart trembled. She smiled gently, reached into her bag, and gave him a pair of shoes she had just bought for her nephew. Placing them beside him, she said, "Take these. They were waiting for you, not for anyone else." The boy's face lit up with a joy brighter than the sun. He pressed the shoes to his chest and whispered, "I will never forget your kindness." Years passed. The boy grew into a young man, determined not to let life's hardships define him. One day, fate led the same teacher, now old and frail, into a hospital, where she struggled to afford her treatment. To her surprise, the doctor who stepped in to cover her expenses was none other than the boy she had once helped. With a warm smile, he told her, "Madam, you mended my heart when I thought the world had forgotten me. Today it is my turn to mend yours." And so she learned that a single act of kindness never truly ends. It travels, grows, and one day returns to the hand that gave it, stronger and more. The empty wallet in a crowded bus one morning. A young man sat silently in the corner, his face pale and heavy with worry. He clutched an empty wallet in his hand, staring at it as if searching for an answer. An old man sitting nearby noticed his distress. His beard was white, his clothes simple, yet his eyes carried the wisdom of years. Leaning gently toward him, the old man asked, "Son, what troubles you so deeply?" The young man hesitated, then sighed. "I was on my way to a job interview, but I lost my money. I cannot even afford the bus fare to get there. And without this job, I don't know how I'll continue." The old man reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded note, and pressed it into the young man's hand. "Take this," he said warmly. "Consider it not money, but a bridge to your tomorrow." The young man's eyes welled with tears. He wanted to refuse, but the old man insisted with a smile. "One day when you see someone else in need, remember this moment and do the same." With that act, the young man's steps grew lighter. He reached the interview on time, carrying not just hope for the job, but the memory of a heart that believed in him when he doubted himself. Years later, the young man had indeed become successful. At a charity gathering, he spotted a familiar face. The same old man, now frail and leaning on a cane. The young man hurried to him, embraced him, and whispered, "You once gave me more than money. You gave me courage when I had none. Today let me be your support just as you were mine." And so the circle of kindness was complete. What began as a small gesture on a bus became a bond that neither time nor circumstance could break. Proof that mending